Ford just did something nobody saw coming. The CEO announced a brand new American truck for around $30,000, arriving in 2027. $30,000 for a new Ford truck. And then Ford quietly locked down one of the most legendary names in its entire history, the Ranchero. After a decade of trucks getting more out of reach, the working man might finally get one built for him. But before you get too excited, there's a catch Ford is very carefully keeping off the billboard. So what is this new Ranchero really, and what is the part they are not telling you? Make sure you subscribe, because I started this channel for one reason, to share what dealerships and car makers don't want you to hear. With your support, I can keep making these videos. Now let's get into it. Let's start with what Ford's CEO Jim Farley actually announced, because this genuinely is a big deal. Ford confirmed that in 2027, it is launching a brand new, affordable mid-size pickup truck with a target starting price of right around $30,000. It will be built right here in America, in Louisville, Kentucky, and it will be the very first vehicle to ride on Ford's brand new universal EV platform, a clean sheet design built specifically to crank out cheaper, simpler vehicles fast. Now, on its own, an affordable new Ford truck would already be big news. But then Ford did the thing that lit the entire internet on fire. The company quietly walked into the trademark office and locked down the rights to one of the most beloved names in its whole history, Ranchero. And if that name does not mean anything to you, let me catch you up, because it matters here. Back in its heyday, the Ford Ranchero was a genuinely genius machine. It was half car and half truck, a smooth, stylish sedan up front, with an open pickup bed out back. It could haul your tools and your lumber all week long and still look sharp pulling up to a diner on a Saturday night. It was cool, it was practical, and people absolutely loved it. Ford built versions of it for decades, and to this day, a clean original Ranchero is the kind of machine that makes grown men go quiet at a car show. And Ford just grabbed that name back off the shelf at the exact moment it is launching a small, affordable truck. And this new one is shaping up to be a real usable vehicle, not some stripped-out penalty box. Ford says it will be a 4-door crew cab that seats 5, with more cargo room than a Toyota RAV4, powered by a motor punchier than the one in a turbocharged Mustang. So this is not a golf cart with a bed. It is a legitimate truck at a price that has not existed in years. You do not have to be a detective to connect those two dots. Every sign points to the legendary Ranchero clawing its way back from the dead in 2027, reborn as a modern, $30,000 American truck. And for a whole lot of people, that is the single most exciting piece of car news in years. But the reason it matters so much has almost nothing to do with nostalgia. It has everything to do with what has happened to truck prices and to your wallet. Here is why that $30,000 number is the real headline, and why it should stop every single truck buyer in America dead in their tracks. Just think about what has quietly happened to trucks over the last 10 years. They have slowly transformed into luxury items. The average price of a new pickup in this country has climbed to somewhere around $60,000, and plenty of them sail well past $70,000 and even $80,000. A basic, honest work truck, the exact kind of vehicle a plumber or a landscaper or a young family used to be able to buy without taking out a second mortgage, has been priced completely and totally out of reach. The car makers figured out that they rake in way more profit by stuffing trucks full of giant screens and heated leather thrones and charging a small fortune. So that is precisely what they all did. And the regular buyer, the working guy who just needs a bed to haul his gear and a truck that fires up every single morning, got left behind in the dust. He got squeezed right out of the new truck market and shoved onto the used lot, or into a 15-year-old truck with 200,000 miles already on the clock. So when Ford stands up on a stage and says it is going to build a brand new truck for $30,000, that is not just another product launch. That is Ford admitting, out loud, in public, that it abandoned its own customers and promising to finally come back for them. A genuinely affordable, brand new American truck would be the first real lifeline the working man has been thrown in years. That is exactly why people are so fired up about this thing. And it is not even only about the money, it is about respect. For years now, the quiet message from the car companies to the average working guy has been brutally clear. If you cannot afford 60 grand, you are not really our customer anymore, so go buy something used. A $30,000 Ranchero would be the first time in a very long time that a major American car maker looked the ordinary buyer dead in the eye and said, "We still build something for you." That is why this one hits people right in the chest, way beyond any spec sheet. But this is the moment where all that excitement runs headfirst into cold, hard reality. Because there is one very important detail that Ford is being awfully quiet about. The catch is a big one, and Ford buried it right under all the excitement. This new Ranchero, this $30,000 savior truck everyone is dreaming about, is not going to have a gas engine anywhere inside it. It is fully electric. Ford is building it on that new universal EV platform, and every single vehicle that rolls off that line is battery-powered, no exceptions. Now, for some buyers, that is going to be perfectly fine, but for a whole lot of the people cheering the loudest for the Ranchero to come back, the ones who actually remember the rumbling, gas-powered original from back in the day, this is going to land like a bucket of ice water to the face. They wanted the spirit and the soul of the old Ranchero, and instead they are being handed a silent electric appliance with a legendary name bolted onto the tailgate. And it gets a whole lot more complicated than just that, because of Ford's own very recent track record with electric trucks. Because remember, this is the exact same company that literally just finished killing off its last electric truck. The F-150 Lightning, Ford's big electric pickup, was a genuine disaster. Ford lost absolutely staggering amounts of money on it, at one point somewhere around $44,000 on every single one it sold. And just last year, the company quietly pulled the plug on it entirely. And it did not just fade away gracefully, it collapsed. In its final stretch, Lightning sales fell off a cliff, dropping by around 70% in a single year, until there were only a few hundred of them left sitting on lots in the entire country. That is the ghost hanging over this brand new truck. So Ford is now standing here asking you to get all excited about a cheap new electric truck from the very same company that just lost billions of dollars and quit on its last electric truck. And that is a completely fair thing to be skeptical about. When the guy who just burned his last restaurant to the ground tells you he is opening a brand new one, you are allowed to ask him a few pointed questions before you go making a reservation. And the single biggest question of all is about that shiny price tag. Because here is the truth about that beautiful $30,000 number that everybody is repeating. It is a target, not a promise. Ford has not actually committed to it. They have not released a final price, a battery range, a towing capacity, or even a finished production design. $30,000 is the number they are dangling in front of you right now to get your heart racing, and if history is any kind of guide, you had better hold on to your wallet with both hands. Let me remind you exactly how this same movie has played out before, not that long ago. When Ford first launched the F-150 Lightning, it was announced with a gorgeous, headline-grabbing starting price of around $40,000. Everybody got excited, just like now, and then reality quietly set in. The cheap version basically disappeared. The prices climbed and climbed and climbed, and before long that $40,000 truck was stickering for $60,000, $70,000, even $90,000. The affordable dream just evaporated into thin air, so you will have to forgive me if I do not take that $30,000 Ranchero straight to the bank just yet. And it is not only the price you have to keep an eye on, it is the timing too. Ford has already quietly shoved this truck backward once, retiming its launch to the second half of 2027, under a project it codenamed T3. And in this business, a delay that shows up before the truck even physically exists is very rarely a good sign. It usually just means even more delays are quietly on the way. Ford is promising an entire wave of new vehicles off this platform. 2 new pickups in 2027 alone, plus SUVs, sedans, and a van somewhere down the road. And its CEO is out there vowing that every one of them will launch flawlessly. That is a lot of promises stacked on top of a company that has fumbled launches before, and every one of those promises is a new chance to slip. So here is my honest take on all of it. I desperately want this truck to be real. I want it to actually cost $30,000. I want Ford to finally throw the working man a real lifeline. But I have personally watched way too many of these shiny stage promises curdle into expensive disappointments to just blindly trust the billboard. Show me the truck, show me the real sticker price, and then we can talk. But even with a healthy dose of skepticism, there is a very real reason Ford is betting the entire company on this one little truck. And I do mean the entire company. This little $30,000 truck, and the whole new platform sitting underneath it, is not some cute little side project for Ford. It is a straight-up Hail Mary. Ford has been getting absolutely hammered on electric vehicles, bleeding billions of dollars a year, and it just got done watching its expensive electric truck faceplant. And at the very same time, it is staring nervously across the ocean at China, which is now building cheap, high-tech electric vehicles that could genuinely bury the American car industry if they ever get let in the door. Ford knows deep down that its long-term survival now depends on cracking the code and figuring out how to build an affordable, actually profitable electric vehicle before China eats its lunch completely. And this new platform is its single biggest bet to pull that off. The CEO has more or less come right out and said that Ford's entire future runs directly through this cheap new lineup of vehicles, which means the pressure sitting on top of this one little truck is absolutely enormous. And it also means the people actually building it, the men and women at that plant in Louisville, Kentucky, are quietly carrying the weight of the whole company on their backs. Their jobs, their paychecks, their town, and the future of an American icon, all of it riding on whether Ford can finally get an affordable electric vehicle right after getting it so spectacularly wrong the very first time around. This is not just a new truck rolling out. This is Ford betting its own future that it can finally build the exact thing it probably should have built years ago. But whether that turns out to be good news or bad news for you, specifically, comes down to one simple question. And here's that question, because it is the real story sitting quietly underneath this whole flashy announcement. Is the Ranchero a genuine gift to the working buyer, or is it just a shiny distraction from an industry that spent an entire decade abandoning him? Because really think about what Ford is actually admitting here. When you strip away the excitement, by racing to build a $30,000 truck, Ford is openly confessing, right out in the daylight, that it and every other car maker got greedy, priced regular hardworking people clean out of the market, and left a giant gaping hole where affordable trucks used to be. The Ranchero is Ford scrambling to fill the exact hole that Ford helped dig in the first place, and that is precisely why you should be feeling both hopeful and very careful at the very same time. Here is the bigger picture that makes it matter even more. Ford is not doing this out of the kindness of its heart. It is doing it because it is scared. Scared of China, scared of losing the affordable buyer forever, scared of a future where the only thing it can sell is a $70,000 truck to a shrinking pile of rich people. A little bit of fear can be a wonderful thing for a buyer, because a scared company finally starts building what people actually want instead of what pads its margins. So the Ranchero is really a test of whether that fear is enough to change how Ford does business. Because if Ford actually delivers a real, reliable, genuinely $30,000 American truck, it could truly change the entire game and drag this whole greedy industry back toward affordability, kicking and screaming the whole way. But if Ford botches this the same way it botched the Lightning, if the price balloons and the launch slips and the quality falls apart, then the Ranchero becomes nothing more than one more broken promise in a very long line of them. That legendary name is a double-edged sword. Ford is choosing to invoke one of the most beloved badges in its entire history, which means that if this truck turns out to be a letdown, it will not just quietly fail, it will insult the memory of the original, and it will torch the trust of the exact working buyers it was built to win back. Ford is not just launching a truck here, it is making a promise on the grave of a legend. And now it actually has to keep it. And make no mistake, the entire industry is watching this one closely. If the working man proves he will line up around the block for a real, honest $30,000 truck, then every other car maker that spent the last decade abandoning that buyer is going to have some very uncomfortable questions to answer. Ford could either lead them all back toward affordability or hand them one more convenient excuse to shrug and say it simply cannot be done anymore. This one little truck is quietly carrying a whole lot more than just 5 passengers and a bed full of lumber. So what does every bit of this actually mean for you, the person who just wants an honest, affordable truck without getting fleeced at the dealership? It means you should be cautiously, carefully, eyes wide open excited. The return of the Ranchero and the idea of a $30,000 American truck is honestly the best piece of news the working buyer has gotten in a very long time. But you keep both eyes wide open the whole way through. You watch that price like a hawk circling a field, because targets have a nasty little habit of climbing right up until launch day. You watch that calendar just as closely, because launches exactly like this one have a long history of quietly slipping later and later. And you never forget that this is the same company that just quit on its last electric truck, now standing here asking for your faith all over again. The Ranchero coming back is a genuinely beautiful idea. Whether Ford turns that beautiful idea into a truck the working man can actually afford, or just another expensive letdown hiding behind a legendary name, is the only thing that truly matters in the end. And that whole story is going to play out over the next 2 years, right out in the open, in front of all of us. So do not go blindly buying the hype, but do not buy into the disappointment just yet either. Just watch, very closely, what they actually build. Because the truck they actually build, not the pretty one on the slide, is the one you will have to pay for, live with, and fix. And the gap between the promise on the stage and the sticker in the window is exactly where the working buyer either finally wins or quietly gets taken one more time. Ford is set to reveal a whole lot more about this truck as it barrels toward that 2027 launch date. And the very moment they finally bolt a real price onto it, we will know for certain whether the Ranchero is a true lifeline or just a beloved legend being used as bait. Subscribe so you get the honest truth about that sticker the second it drops, before any dealer gets the chance to spin it.